Hello class, I'm just going to run through a quick example for those people who might be a little bit confused on a few aspects of how to integrate and work with the different classes for this project. So here we have an example of the card example that I looked at the beginning when we were looking at um, cards and decks and hands. And in this example, what we had is just a few, just minimize a bunch of stuff here. So we had our card to work with. So if we're looking at our card, there it is. So our card just had the suit and the rank, where there's our constructor, so it tells us how to build the card. And you'll notice the constructor is public card, matches this, and we said that every card when we create it needed to have a suit and a rank. We made sure that the default constructor was private because we didn't want any other way of creating a card. We had accessors, the get suit and get rank, and then we had a way of converting it to a string. Now, the string to string method is a way of converting all of the information in my class to a string, which is quite helpful later on if I'm doing something like saving to a file or printing to the screen, and we'll see where that is later on. So remember the toString method later on. We also had an example. We created the deck, and in this case the deck had an array of cards. We set its max size. The deck would automatically set itself up, so it would create all of the cards that need to be created by going through every possible suit and every possible rank, and then creating the card and adding it to the array. And it had the ability to deal a card, to return a card to the deck, to get its size, again printing it out as a string, and also we had a private method shuffle because we wanted only the deck to shuffle itself. We didn't want anyone else to be able to shuffle the deck. So that allows it to be managed. And just as review, this is our enumerated type rank and our enumerated type suit. You guys can check those out later on if you'd like. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at is mainly the card tester and the deck. Okay, we're going to be changing things around a little bit. And with my deck, I have everything I need, so that's going to stay more or less the same. I'm going to need this class called a hand. We'll create that in a moment. But then I've got my standard menu. In my case, I should call this something else. Welcome to the hand manager. And what we're going to do is we can either print all the cards, we can add a card to a hand, remove a card from our hand, analyze the hand, or just exit. This example is going to be kept simple. It doesn't have loading and saving to a file, but you guys do have examples that allow you to see how that would work. And from these options, I'm going to either print a hand, add a card to my hand, remove, and analyze. I did do a little bit to allow it so that it's able to run through a loop, but there's numerous ways of doing that. This is only one way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look through this example, and we're going to just sort of build things up a little bit. Let's start by printing a hand and seeing what that will actually look like. So in order for me to do this, I need to create a hand class. So I'm going to go up to new. I'm going to create a new Java class. I'm going to call it hand. There it is. Let's just pop it over here. Okay, so there's my hand class, which is all exciting. And what I want to do is I want to get it to show everything that I need. So I'm just going to change things around a little bit. So my hand class, what it's going to need is it's going to need an array of cards. And we'll call it cards, nice and simple. And we're going to initialize it to be 5 hands. Okay. My hand is going to be different than your database in that it is going to be a static, or it's going to be a standard size of just 5. It can go less than 5, but it can't go more than 5. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the constructor. So to create a constructor, you say public hand, and then I'm going to have it pass in the deck. So a deck object is going to be passed in, and remember the deck has all 52 cards, and it has the ability to deal the cards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than the number of cards, I plus plus, and for each card in my array, so remember I is going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. For each time, I'm going to tell the deck to deal me a card. And there you go. There's my constructor. So after it runs, it's going to create this array. It's going to create this variable. Remember, these are member variables. They belong to the hand object. That means every time I create a hand, it's going to create an array and a variable called numCards that belongs to that object, and it's hidden within it. So it's a good idea for us to make these private, so no one can go in and change our cards without accessing us appropriately. All right, imagine if someone removed a card from our hand, but they forgot to change the numCards. We would have no control over that if these were public. Next thing we want to be able to do is let's see if we can get this thing to print itself out to a string. So the toString method, in this case, I would create a string called output. From there, I would scan through the cards. So this is the other way of going through cards that we sort of touched on. We could do it using a for loop, and I'll show that to you again in another method. So we can tell each card to print itself as a string and put it on a new line. And then we could return the output. Okay, so there's my toString method. So I could use that if I just say system.out.println and then pass in the hand object. The system.out.println automatically will call the toString, and lo and behold, it will print to output. Some useful things that I'm going to need for my menu is I'm going to have to be able to get the value. Okay, so this is for analysis. Okay. And in fact, let's do this in the order that we're actually creating this. So we'll do this a little bit later. Let's come back to our tester and start doing what we need to do. So if we're going to print out a hand, what do I need to know in order to be able to do that? Well, for me to print out the hand, I need to know the number of cards in the hand, and I need to be able to get the card at each hand. Yes, I have the toString, but I want to have control over how I'm going to print those strings here. So for that reason, I want to get each card individually. So I'm going to need to be able to talk to the hand a little bit differently. So for me to be able to do that, I'm going to need to have a few extra different methods for this to work. Okay, so what I'm going to have in this case is I'm going to have a public int get numCards, and that's just going to return numCards. Okay, and the other thing I'm going to need is I need to be able to access a card at a specific part. So I'm going to say get card at, and then it's going to pass in an index. For this to work, we just need to do some boundary checking. So if I is greater than or equal to cards.length, or I is less than 0, we're going to return null. So we're not going to return anything. And otherwise, what we're going to do is we're just going to return the card in our array. Okay, so now I can come back to my card tester, and I'm going to get it to print out what I need. So for this to work, all I need to do is say for int I equals 0, so our usual for loop, but we're going to be accessing the hand and getting the number of cards. Okay, notice that I'm not assuming 5, I'm allowing it to be a little bit more flexible because it's possible that I might only have 3 cards in my hand. And I'm going to grab the card, from the hand. So my hand, just as a reminder, is the object. I forgot to mention that with my hand, notice how when I have the constructor, I'm passing in the deck. That was defined in our constructor. So with my hand, I'm going to get the card at I, and I'm going to print each card on the same line. So I'm not going to print line. I'm just going to print spaces between the cards, and then afterwards I'm going to print out nothing so I can go to the next line. Okay, so there we go. we have everything up and running. Yeah, as you can see here, I have the analyze option, so let's just do that now. So to print out the my hand to analyze it, my hand is going to need a get value function, so let's go back to my hand for that. So you need to have a get value. So for get value, what we need to do is we need to take all of the cards and convert them into an integer. Well, in order for us to do that, what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to use some tricks with our enumeration. So first we're going to start off with just a blanket variable value. That's going to be the value of the actual hand. Then we're going to loop through our hand. Okay, and we're going to grab the card. All right. The next thing I need to do is to get the value of that. So I'm going to say int card rank equals c.getRank. I should say something about this. So notice how this is returning a rank, not an actual integer. That's because of the enumeration. But within my rank, if you go back and check the example before, I had an option to get int value. So it's going to go to the rank enumeration, and then the rank enumeration is going to turn itself into a number for me. I programmed that into the enumeration itself. Again, that is in the example, so you can refer to that. And then once we have that figured out, we can actually check to see if the card, space this out, if the card rank is greater than 10, we're just going to assume it's 10. Lots of times, jack, queens, and kings are just assumed to have a value of 10. Otherwise, the card rank is going to equal whatever it was. So if it's an ace, it's a 1. If it's a 2, it's a 2. If it's a 9, it's a 9. If it's a 10, it's a 10. That will go through all the values. And then finally, we need to return the value. I forgot that. That's why it's unhappy. Okay, notice that this method has a return type of integer, so we have to return an integer, otherwise it's not happy. So at this point, I should be able to run my program, and all it will do is print off the hands, and I can also get the value. I can't add or remove yet. So one option is to print out my cards. Fantastic. Notice that the menu comes up again, so I can keep printing if I wanted. I can also analyze its value. There we go. The value of it is 0. Well, that's fun. That's not right, so we need to go back and actually go back and fix it. So what is going on with my hand? Ah, I added a card rank, not to value. That's my mistake. There we go. So if I run this again, it should actually work. There you go. I saw some testing in real time. There you go. So now when I run it, I get 42, and that's if I have this hand. And if I hit exit, it exits. In the next video, I'm going to show you guys how to do the add and remove.